Hello, and welcome to another video. Today I would like to present to you Jungle Karthus, which is a pick I really enjoy playing at the moment, and recently in general. I think I have, I don't know, I think in the last like 2 weeks I probably played like 150 games of this, and I think I played it before, obviously, before this, so I think I have some stuff I can offer you here. So if you start off with the abilities, for anyone who doesn't know, the passive just makes it so that you stay in a zombie state and you don't instantly die when you die, so you can have an impact after dying. What this actually has an impact on inside of the game is that trading kills becomes really worth it, diving becomes really strong, and in general you are quite likely to trade kill whenever you do fight, so fighting is quite rewarded for you because it's hard for the enemy to get a clean kill on you. The Q, I mean, everyone knows what Karthus Q is, but the important thing that I want to note with Q is this delay, right? So you might think, okay, well, it detonates at the target location after 0.5 or 0.7, right? 2.7. So you would think, it's something random or something. But no, as far as I know, the reality of this is that it's either or. And what ends up happening is that this dictates how you're going to end up clearing your jungle camps. So a lot of people know the pattern of clearing on Karthus, which is QQ auto attack, QQ auto attack, right? But that's not actually correct. The correct pattern is QQ auto attack and then Q auto attack. So you only get one Q in the next pattern, and then you end up doing an auto attack every time, and this saves you, I think, like 5 seconds or something on clearing, which is pretty huge, I would say. Pretty huge. Then the W, not much to say. The important thing here is the slow is actually big enough for you to force your Qs, because it's 40% at rank 1 already, and the slow is pretty long. So usually when you do slow, you do end up getting at least 2 Qs, possibly 3 or whatever. And these Qs are basically guaranteed if you know what you're doing. Obviously, getting some extra damage is also nice, but that's the important thing, and we'll go over that a bit later. The E, I mean, what do I really say about the E? I mean, it's just damage. It gives mana back when you kill stuff, which is really nice, because sometimes you use the E in a way where you go clear raptors or krugs only because you want it to give you more mana than you spent doing the camp, which can be a little trick you can have. And the ult, not really much to say, but the interesting thing about the ult is that a lot of the time it's really worth it for you to use the ult before you fight and not in your passive. Like, people always they associate Karthus with, okay, he's going to die and then he's going to ult in his passive. But the problem is, if you ult in your passive, what ends up happening is that, look, the channel is 3 seconds, right? And your passive is 7 seconds. So half the passive you're spending just ulting, which is a bit disgusting, no? Considering your Q has so much damage. Like, look, if you get isolated Qs, this is 230 plus 70% AP, and then compare this with your ult, right? So, say level 10, right? Level 10, you have level 5 Q, but you only have level 1 ult. So your Q, one isolated Q, does more damage than your whole ult proc at level 10, right? Which can be a bit bait, I suppose. So, yeah, that's one thing you can figure out. Either way, though, I think that says everything we really need to know about the abilities. The interesting thing also is that you can spam toggle this spell, E, which is what some people do, but it's not that important. But it's a useful thing you can do, so you just spam it and it'll toggle on and off. Either way, though, let's get into items and runes real quick before we do anything, because I want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of this. So okay, these runes are pretty normal. So Dark Harvest, Cheap Shot, Eyeball, You can go Treasure Hunter or you can go Ultimate Hunter. I think Ultimate Hunter is slightly better in most cases, even in jungle. Though I think Treasure Hunter is viable in jungle, but the thing is you can play Karthus in every role, and like literally every single role, right? Like you can play it top lane, you can play it jungle, you can play it mid lane, you can play it ADC, you can play it support. So the thing is, in pretty much every other role, Ultimate Hunter is just you have to take it, right? So people also kind of play it as if they have to take it in jungle, which is not exactly true. You can get away with playing Treasure Hunter, but it's just a different playstyle, and if you're not really abusing the playstyle, then it's never going to be worth it, while Ult Hunter is just worth it no matter what you do. So yeah, if you can figure out why you take Treasure Hunter, then feel free to take it, but otherwise maybe avoid it a little bit. Either way though, these runes yeah, maybe don't do that. You can do Presence of Mind and Last Stand though, and that's fine. Very simple though, like Cheap Shot is just good because you slow enemies a lot with both your red buff in jungle, with your smite, with your exhaust, with your W. I mean, you don't really take exhaust most games, but if you do, then it's another way to slow. And also if your teammates do some kind of CCing. Eyeball, just good because you get a lot of kills. Ult Hunter, self-explanatory. Your ult cooldown is, I think, 200 seconds at rank 1, which is quite long. Presence of Mind is just because you're gonna run especially if you play certain types of builds, you're gonna run even more namely something like playing Sorks early or whatever else. Yeah. Then Last Stand is just good because you end up fighting and trading kills a lot. So if you're fighting, you're low HP. If you're low HP, you get bonus damage, and it's just good, right? You can also get Coop. I wouldn't really recommend Cut Down in most games, mostly because your items have some HP on them, like Medjay's has some HP if you buy it, or Darkseal. Shadow Flame has some HP, like Morello if you buy it has some HP. You also tend to be decently high level on Karthus, so the people who are under leveled compared to you won't really get hit by that. So would recommend these two, preferably. But yeah, that's about it for runes. You can also go for First Strike though, I should mention. And I see it doesn't really show it here, but basically what you do is First Strike, Magical Footwear, Futures Market, and Cosmic Insight, and then secondary, you would go some combination of these runes with Ultimate Hunter. And then what you do in that scenario is you play pretty high range and you spam ult and you get gold that way, and it's pretty good. It's especially good if you can't kill the enemy, but most games I prefer to go Dark Harvest because I think that playing a fighting playstyle is more useful than playing an AFK farming playstyle, which is also confirmed by, or well, kind of confirmed by a player I know in Korea, who I think is the only one who's challenger on Korea on this champion. And he does actually play it in jungle. And he also does do this. Let me just pull up his OPG real quick. He's not challenger anymore. GG, he dropped out. But yeah, he perma plays Dark Harvest. I think he decayed or something because he hasn't been playing. Or maybe not, maybe he just is too low LP now, who knows. But yeah, as you can see, he does this. If you look at his account, he almost never goes First Strike. Though he does do it some games, like for example here. Who knows? Some games he decides to do it, but in like 90% of games he just goes Dark Harvest, as you can see, and pretty chill. And your OPG will most likely look similar to this if you actually pick up Karthus, because it's a champion you're very likely to get MVP or Ace on if you're doing decently. Okay, so as for items, just Leandris. The problem with Ludens is that while it seems cool, you burst, you like pen, whatever, it doesn't actually do shit, so every time you buy it, you'll realize that you kind of just like got zero value out of it, and it's kind of pointless. Harvester, I mean, you can go this. I think this is actually low-key better than Ludens, especially because when people go for Ludens, they're going for that one-shot playstyle. But then Night Harvester is just a bit better at that, I think, especially because you get enough pen anyway to do true damage to most people who don't buy MR. So yeah, but that is not a recommendation to buy Night Harvester by any means. This is only like kind of for fun or whatever, or if you're like going for big ults. But there isn't really much of a choice in mythics, as you can see. Like, really, it's just Leandry's. Like, there's nothing much to really think about in terms of mythics. But you can think about build path, kind of. So, while you might think, okay, well, I'm gonna rush my... Man, stop giving me ads, man. I see I use ad block. It's cringe. Well, you might think, okay, I'm going to just rush my mythic, right? There's also the idea of rushing your Sorks, right? So you have two ways to play this. You either go full rush mythic, or well, there are a few ways to play this. So the benefit of going full rush mythic is you're always going to have the best clear of your jungle, right? So buying these components, because they're especially great for Karthus right now, because the Lost Chapter doesn't cost so much, so you're likely to get it in the first place. Then the Fiendish is just fine, right? And you get CDR and everything, and you get the AP, and it's just great, right? So buying these items will give you the best clear speed that you can get. Leandris will also give you the most DPS technically, just in terms of like DPS itself, right? So in the end, you're going to be clearing really well, and you're going to have a decent amount of damage, and that's what you're playing for, right? If you're playing Sorks Rush, though, that's a bit of a different way to play, and I quite like this, and I think it's pretty good in a lot of games. What you're doing here is you're trying to gank or fight the enemy jungler, and you abuse the movement speed, which lets you get into the enemy's face, and because your champion is so strong early game, you actually do have enough damage anyway to just kill people. This does pretty much objectively do less damage than buying AP though. Like buying Sorks before buying at least like Lost Chapter and Fiendish is just going to end up losing you damage, pretty much. But the movement speed can offset that if you play around it. So that's kind of the idea with that. The last way of building is, as I just mentioned, you go Lost Chapter and Fiendish, and then you would go Sorks. That's also what that Korean guy does a decent amount. And the benefit there is just that you already got your damage, and now you're abusing Sorks as well. The difference really is that if you go Leandris, you can do a lot more DPS by using your E and using non-isolated Qs, while if you go those two items and then you go Sorks, then you're more reliant on isolated Qs, but you can do more. Because your isolated Qs, I think, do like 30, 40 damage more probably, but your burn does like less than that, but not by that much. So basically, if you're min-maxing the Qs, you're getting pretty similar, maybe even better damage with Sorks, but you also get the movement speed, which is really OP, right? But yeah, I mean, not too much else to say about that. For your second item, though, you have like a few choices. So as you can see them here, you have Shadow Flame, you have Zonya, you have Rabadons, and you have Magi, and kind of Void stuff. I don't recommend going Morvello after your Mythic. That's a bit special. So yeah. So when would you go each of these? Shadow Flame is just generally decent, right? It has good stats, does give you a decent amount of damage, and if you're going for a damage build, it's just nice, right? Like this is the most popular, and it's what people do in general. After this, you get to go for two types of builds. You can, after Shadow Flame, either go for a defensive item, or you can go for a Rabadons. Both are pretty decent. The defensive item in this scenario would probably be Zonya or something. And I think that's fine. With Rabadons, you're kind of just going for like raw AP, most damage. I think it's pretty good, especially because Rabadon's got buffed, so now it gives more AP than before. So it's pretty decent, especially if you stack your Dark Seal. So if you have a Dark Seal and you stacked it a bit, this is a build you can consider, I suppose. Zanya is very good though, because what Zanya allows you to do is just perma fight even more. So if you're going to play more fighting and confident, then Zanya can have a lot of value. But if you're going to play either more at range, or you just don't need the Zanya, or you're just not gonna fight because you're not confident or something, then I would recommend you steer away from this item, because this item, while you might think, it's defensive, so that means I want to play defensive and like then use this and I won't die, right? The reality is that I think that the way you use this item is you go in and then you buy a lot of time and you're really annoying with it. So it's more of a fighting item rather than defensive, in my opinion. And lastly, it was also Magi. I mean, Magi is self-explanatory. Like, if you're confident and you have stacks and Dark Seal, you can just go with, and it's gonna be good always, of course. Like, Magi is just good as long as you don't throw with it. And Void Staff is quite good on Karthus in general, because Pen is really good on Karthus, right? Because you only need a little bit of AP, and then your AP ratios aren't that high. If we go back to our AP ratios, as you can see, the enhanced damage here is 70% as an AP ratio on the Q when you're isolated. When you're queuing isolate, I suppose. 20% AP per second on the E, and the ult is 75 again. So per second, you could say that it's something like 90% AP ratio, right? And that's not that high, because if you compare it to champs that actually have a really high AP ratio, like Evelyn, for example, right? We love Evelyn, our favorite champion in the game. Bro, stop giving me so many ads. Total magic damage, right? Just the Q, 200. And then the E basically ends up being whatever. And the ult is 180. And what this ends up being is something like a 400% AP ratio from what I remember calculating a while back. So yeah, that should tell you enough about that comparison. That's why Evelyn really stacks raw AP like Magi and Rabadons and whatever, and why Evelyn pretty much is guaranteed to go secondary Rabadons, like second item Rabadons, rather than going Shadow Flame or something. While something like Karthus can go for Shadow Flame because he values Pen on top of AP more than just raw AP, right? So Pen is just really good on this champ. That's why Sorks, Shadow Flame, Void Staff, and so on are really good. Alright. So how do we itemize? Really, very simple, as we said just now, right? It's either something like this build, and then you add on like a Rabadons or a Zanya or something, right? Most likely Rabadons, if you're going for this build already, is what you're gonna end up adding on, because you just get so much value from it that there isn't really much of a point in not doing it. If you go for this kind of a build, you're also probably going to go for Rabadons, but you can also go for other items here. Here, you can actually afford to go something like Morello, because you're going more of a utility perma fighting build. And this is something I do use, actually, in higher elo games. In lower elo games, I just go this instantly. And then this build will end up with whatever also, like Rabadons just has too much value again though, so you would highly prefer to go it, because you just get so much value in both of these builds that not going it is kind of meh. The only exception really is this build, where you can kind of go whatever the fuck you want after this, because you just bought Pen and some AP, so it's not like Rabadons has that immense of a value. Shadow Flame has okay value, like Zanya has okay value, like these shit utility items have okay value. Like pretty much just anything is good after this. So up to you really what you do there. You can also abuse a few other items, like Rylai's has really good value always. This mask item, I don't remember what it's called, but it's pretty decent for burn and stuff, but people don't really go it right now. Really, you mostly just stick to like these items, and then sometimes you can go like Rylai's or something, right? But you don't really need to get too creative at the moment with the way that the champion is, and you can just stick to picking between these. You can sometimes go the mask, I guess, if you really want to. But avoid Ludens, avoid Banshee, avoid this thing. Like, even if it's the best in the game you're currently playing, it's just not worth the effort of thinking about it, as it's not gonna give you that much of a return. Okay, so we have that. So now, what are our game plans and like how do we path and whatever, right? So as Karthus, we have a few game plans, kinda. We're really, really strong level 1, so invading of any kind is just good for us, whether that be invading before or after 130. The difference really is what we're trying to achieve. If we invade before 130, we're trying to fight, and then we're trying to play in our own jungle, just being annoying, and then just play normally, right? If we're invading after 130 though, we're trying to either split the map or fuck up the enemy. So, okay, let's go over some examples of invades after, right? So, so you can do like these invades, or you can do like these invades mostly, right? So you're choosing if you want to invade with your bot lane or if you want to invade with your top lane. And what you do is you also decide, do I want to fight the enemy jungler or do I just want to split the map? If you just want to split the map, then you go on the side that you think is better for you. So let's say that your bot lane is a matchup you really want to impact, then you would do this thing, right? And you would clear this, and then you have a free way to gank this, to dive this, to do whatever, right? And if you don't want to do that, like, it's still fine, because you can just walk like this, you can do like these camps, you can maybe like contest this still if the enemy didn't insta-take it, right? And it's still like fine. But it's really hard for the enemy, because what this does to the enemy is, if the enemy started here and you started here, after they do these camps or they do like your camps or whatever, right? The problem is, how do they get to the bot lane, which is the matchup that both of you are trying to impact, since he also started top side and you started for bot lane as well. Even though you started bot side, you still started a path that is bot lane centric. So if he goes and he just decides to at some point run to bot lane, right, in some way, the problem for him is he will never clear all of these camps, so you're going to get a camp advantage no matter what, and it's really hard for him to get through you and get to bot lane still, right? So what do we really do here? It's really difficult, because it's kind of like telling the enemy jungler either you're going to be behind or your bot lane is going to be behind. And if you run there and do something random, then most likely both of you are going to be behind, both you and your bot lane, which is really disastrous, right? And that's why level 1 invades are really nice. This is more of a split map type of invade, while the other type of invade is the one where you try to ruin the enemy jungler's game, right? So here we're thinking of champs like Hecarim or whatever, and you can really, really ruin these champs. So what you're trying to do there is, let's say that the Hecarim will start blue buff, right? Then you just go hunt him on blue buff. If he's gonna start red buff, you start hunting him on the red buff. And what you want to do is either kill him on the buff, which is like the best case scenario for you, and after that you're just ahead, right? Because you take all of his camps, you killed him, and then you can take all of your camps as well, or you can fight him on the other side of the map, right? If you started on red buff, then you can fight him in his blue side as well, maybe, possibly, or whatever else, right? And just whatever you can think of, whatever you want to do. Whatever you think is good in your particular game. Okay, what if we don't kill him, right? If we force him just off the camps, then we should get these camps and he should be forced to start like here solo or something, right? This is still really good for us, because after we do 2 or 3 of these camps, we can also try to do these camps if we have any kind of prio in our lanes. And after that happens, how does he contest this? He doesn't, right? So instantly we kind of pushed him into one quadrant, while we can play around the whole map like this, right? We just have full control over all of this, while he has one quadrant. The thing you need to be careful of here, though, is to not get baited into random fights. So, like, you might do this, and you might think, okay, I'm going to just gank mid, like, walk through and gank it real quick. The problem can be that you can lose a lot of HP or get baited into fighting, and if you get baited into fighting, maybe he also comes and they kill you, but okay, let's say they don't kill you, right? But then you go like this, and then he comes and he's like contesting a bit, and then you fight him a bit, and then I don't know, the mid laner like comes and you fight him a bit, right? And you didn't die or anything. But the problem is that the game timer reached like, I don't know, 3:30 or something. So now Hecarim does this scuttle and does this scuttle, and suddenly he has 5 camps done, so he has 20 CS, and you have these camps, and you have maybe like these camps, and maybe you have like 24 CS. But that now it's awkward for you to go for your blue side, so you decide, well, what do I do now? And the problem is they have vision in all of the reverse, so they have kind of control over it. Your laners can't really play aggressive, and you don't really get a huge lead, so you kinda messed up, right? As you can see here. This can be a tricky situation. Even though you have a small lead, you lost so much on the map that it's not really worth what you ended up doing, right? Especially because you minimized your own impact, you minimized the enemy jungler's impact a little bit. So, not really the best. I think I have a lot of examples of invades though, and I can show you one where the enemy jungler gets like ruined by it. Which game was it? This? No, but kinda. Oh, no, wait. This one. This one, the enemy jungler gets completely ruined. I think it was invades as well, so can just show you an example real quick. Okay. So there are many ways to abuse this stuff, and I didn't really usually recommend to do stuff like this because I don't think it's necessary a lot of the time, but I think you can actually get such a huge lead if you learn how to do a little bit of it, that it's kind of a waste not to be able to do it at all. So here what we looked for is level 1 invade, and basically what I already knew is that the Talia showed like bot lane, right? And she was like fighting here. So she lost a lot of HP. I was going to invade her anyway, but then I was like, okay, now she lost a lot of HP as well, and she's gonna be here a bit late, so now it's even more free. So we go for this ward, and we try to stand here, so if she tries to go to Raptors, we're gonna see it. But she didn't go to Raptors, and it's 130, right? So now we try to figure out, okay, well, what is she gonna do? Okay, she's going to like do the red buff then. So let's fight her there. And that guy just dies. This guy just dies. And we're chilling, right? Quick double kill level 1. We take that. Oh, can my camera stop escaping me? So here then, you might be baited to like think, okay, well, I can take all of her camps or I can't take anything, right? The thing is, neither of those is true. Because if she runs straight here, you will still see her on the ward and you can smite this. And if she runs straight to red buff, then, well, nothing will happen if you do the Raptors, right? The Raptors are free, but doing anything else would be really bait because then you will die probably. So then how do you abuse this lead now, right? You keep clearing and okay. So the one thing to realize here is that when the enemy jungler gets messed up like this, he is thinking, how do I come back on this and how can I abuse the enemy, right? So there are 2 ways for him to really abuse something here. He either has to invade me on my blue side, or he has to like come here and take these camps before I get here. So how does he really do this? First he has to do red buff, no matter what, right? And then after that, he has to run somewhere. But if he runs here instantly, I don't really think he will find me on the wolves, right? Because I can just keep running. And he doesn't have flash, so I doubt I will die to that. But then I skip the Gromp, because first of all, on the Gromp, he easily finds me. And second of all, if I do the Gromp, then you can see I will be so late that he will actually get my Raptors and my red buff probably, which will be full compensation for him. So I'm thinking, okay, we can fight this. I get this camp from him and just kill him, right? Because he's level 2, I'm level 3. There's no way he will win. So, okay. We got like a huge lead just playing basically jungler versus jungler. We didn't really fight in lanes or gank or something. And now since I have a 2-level lead, I can fight anything I want. The problem is he has items, right? And he has HP. So I don't really want to like fist fight him. But since I'm so strong and I did so much, I can now go for double scuttle, but then, Forgot about top laner. Monka S. So sometimes stuff like this can happen, and this ruins your plan really hard. So like I didn't pay attention to him, and instead paying attention to like the other people, like the mid laner and the jungler, and suddenly, okay, got trapped by the guy, right? But what do we do here? If we actually got the scuttle, that would be amazing. If we don't get it, okay, whatever, right? Happens. But then if we get the scuttle, I think that you can also try to get the raptors, and when you get both of those, if you look at my CS right now, that would be 32, or well, 31 with the scuttle. And then if I take the raptors as well, I'm 35 CS to 15, and all he has to do is these wolves that he's finishing now, and this Krug camp. So his game is just ruined, right? And then after all of that, they're taking the raptors and whatever, all of my camps would respawn. But yeah, here I just end up taking the raptors anyway. And I decide to fight him because, well, not too much he can really do. But this is what I mean, like your champ is just really strong early game, so you can abuse that really high. You can fight level 1, you can fight all the early levels, you can invade, you can take all the camps, whatever, up to you, right? But your goal really on Karthus is to get at least 60 CS at 10 minutes and to fight the enemy. That's like kind of your general goal. Because if you just go for CS, okay, you can get like 80 CS at 10 minutes or more probably in most of your games. The problem is that won't really end up being a win. Like you would highly prefer to either impact lanes or the enemy jungler. Because if you don't, then you're playing the ult bot Karthus and you're probably not gonna win too many games on the champ. Okay, so then this kind of sums up the level 1 plan. Obviously, there's more to talk about there, but this video would be way too long if I try to unwrap every single pattern of invading and whatever. So let's wrap it up there. What is our plan though after that? So a lot of people try to rush level 6 really hard on Karthus, but that's not really that necessary. It's just gonna come as a byproduct of what you do. But what you really want to do is make sure that you're creating a lead and then also fighting a lot. So if you have a shit ton of camps you could do, you should do that because you're creating a lead anyway. But if you don't, then you should look for fights. Because as I said many times already, you're really, really strong. So if you go for a 3v3, you're likely to do well. If you go for a 2v2, you're likely to do well. If you go for a 1v1, you're likely to do well. Obviously, you have to hit your Qs though, but it's okay. We can go over that in a bit. So when you do get level 6 though, what you look to do is you want to make sure that all of your jungle is cleared, kinda, but not. You don't need to clear all of it. You can clear like most of it most of the time, and then look for plays. You're really good at ganking from these bushes. So if you can get into these bushes and then gank from that, that's a really good gank actually. And counter ganking just as well, no comment, right? Like either way, if it's just ganking the enemy laners or counter ganking, you're going to be really amazing. And you're also able to like solo kill mid laners or something. For example, if you play against like Annie or something, right? Like at level 3 or something, you can just walk into her and just kill her. Same thing applies if you play Karthus in mid lane. Like if you play against Annie or something and she decides to walk up without stun, you just walk up to her and you just Q her 5 times and she dies, basically, right? But then, okay, so we reached that stuff. So what's our goal, really? After that, Herald is like pretty nice to take the first one, obviously, like always. But then we want dragons because the one thing is, if you don't take dragons on these champs like Karthus, then you're gonna have a really hard time playing because you're not gonna have a win con. You're not gonna be able to get the enemy to fight you when they don't want to fight. And that's like kind of a big issue with Karthus. Like your biggest issue is you can't reach anything. And everything, like when they have mobility, when they have a lot of movement speed, a lot of range, whatever, they just don't let you play, right? You don't reach them, you don't have any impact on them, and all you do is you just press ult and you hope for the best, right? So the way we avoid that is by trapping and also by making the enemy come to us. So taking dragons is really amazing for that because we create a win con, and it's also pretty easy to take. But I wouldn't really take dragon until you have at least like one item, like Lost Chapter or something, unless your bot lane helps you. But preferably you would have your bot lane helping you anyway. But once you have like Leandris or something, you can really easily solo it. But don't get baited into using your E all the time on Dragon because you're gonna run out of mana. So just spam Q on it, please and thank you. Please, please, thank you. Then when you get to around like level 11, that's like really a good spot to be in. Level 10, 11, whatever, because you got your level 2 ult at 11 and you also maxed out your Q. So you're really, really strong. So what you do then is you just try to force fights. And now the question is, what kind of a build are you playing? If you're playing Shadow Flame, right, then what you're trying to do is show up to a fight or something, right? And you're trying to have your teammates go in for you, and you just Q from a distance, you W from a distance, and so on. And sometimes you go in when it's free, but whatever. Most of the time you play like a more of a mage, right? If you went for something like Magi's, then same thing. If you went for like Rabadons, then maybe you can go in a bit more because you just have so much damage. But still, like, same thing, right? Still the same thing. The only difference really is if you have Zhonya, because then you're gonna play frontline. Like, then you just go full frontline yourself, and you can actually engage the fights and whatever, because you're unlikely to die. And even if you do die, most of the time it's gonna be a really big kill trade for your death. But yeah, just keep clearing everything, keep taking enemy camps, and keep fighting, right? Like, that's kind of the idea. There isn't really too much that you can say about this, because as I said before, I'll show you one of this guy's replays just as an example, because you might not believe me. Let's go 1310 or something. Okay. So let's do a quick little replay of this. This is the one game he went first strike, which is a bit not the best for us to look at. The reason I think he went first strike this game, though, is because it's really hard to reach these champions. Like, Syndra just pushes you away and he outranges you. Lucian, Nami, like, dash too much and also outrange you by too much. And this creature is just this creature. It's just really hard to reach the enemy this game. But yeah, he chooses to just clear. Why is that? Like, enemy bot lane is really strong anyway, so it's not like he can invade that. He could invade top side, but it's kind of like, why? Could be a valuable thing to do though, actually. So if he did choose to do that, could be decent, but the problem is that I think Nor might be stronger than Tristana also, so pretty difficult, honestly. But yeah, still clear. He actually skips the red to do Crux first. To make his sequencing a bit better. Pretty cool. But yeah, then he looks for a dive. And he just like tries to fight, right? And as I said, you're like really strong, right? So just like keep fighting, keep diving, keep doing shit like that, and you'll make a lead. Even if you trade kill, that's fine. Because you just want to make sure that you take everything that you can, and then just like fight. Because if you don't fight as Karthus, you're kind of wasting the fact that you're like one of the strongest early game champs in the game. Right? As we keep looking at this, okay, see, so he went for the AP heavy build, but I think most of the games he plays this, and then he plays Sorks. So then you see him, okay, invade, like dive behind enemy towers, right? Clear, fight, right? It's not like we're doing every camp on cooldown. We're just doing the camps, and then when we don't do the camps, we decide, okay, we invade, we dive, whatever, right? We fight. And this is how you really make a lead on Karthus and how you get your advantages. Like, again, invade, right? Then if we look, he's probably going to do like a camp or two and fight again. So he does the first Herald. Sadly, in this game, he lost both of the dragons, but that's kind of inevitable, considering that you're playing against Lucian, Nami, and Kha'Zix. So it's really hard to take them. But like half the game, from what we skipped through right now, right? He was playing under enemy towers. He dove this like 2 times. He was fighting like here like once. He was fighting like here like once. He was fighting like here, right? So every time that he's fighting, it's not just like AFK full clear, which is what people try to do on Karthus and why they don't end up winning on this champ. Okay. So then what do you do in mid game and late game? Pretty simple actually. You try to obviously still take all the camps you can, but then you want to play around the people that have the most CC and setup or are going to get collapsed on the most, because you need the enemies to come into you, and when the enemies come into you, then you're going to be able to fight them. Because as I said before, your biggest issue as Karthus is that you can't get the enemies to fight you. You don't have CC, and people can just walk away from you, outrange you, space you, kite you, whatever. Late game, same thing as well though. But another thing you can actually abuse in mid and late game is you can go sweeper on Karthus, and you get anywhere into these jungles, and you just sweep a bush, and then you just trap there. And if you trap, what ends up happening is that you get the first Q for free, and then the second Q and third Q are free because of W, and you kind of just kill people. Okay. And then I said I would show off a few things in terms of his Qs, which is probably something you're going to need as well. And maybe I'll show a clear as well. So let's go through that, and then we can wrap it up. These are the runes I like as well. They're pretty good. Okay, so first of all, okay, let's just do this for now. Wait. Okay, so first of all, when you use your W, right? You use like QW, you would press it like this, and you would spawn your W on top of the enemy as the Q is like going out. It basically like guarantees that you're gonna hit them as long as you aim at their feet, kinda. You need to aim at the middle of their hitbox, which is pretty much their feet. So as long as you aim it like this, most champs in the game won't have enough movement speed to walk out of it when they're hit by your W, because the movement speed slow is just too high, right? You won't get all of the duration to give you free Qs though, because as you can see, it's a decaying slow. So the first like 2-3 Qs are kind of free, then after that it becomes a bit harder. But what I was talking about with bushes is, if someone is like walking into this bush, right? Like let's say they're like here, right? You get the first Q like this, and it's really free. Because all you really need with Karthus is to predict one click ahead whenever they're not slowed, and whenever they are slowed, you just need to click on them, and you will hit. And really, when people are like trying to dodge your spells, like if this guy was trying to dodge, right? He would go like this, and then he would like just start going back. So you can just wait until they reach their end point, and then you just throw the Q from where they came from, and that's usually gonna work. As you can see here though, we only did 1 Q after the second rotation, and we got the auto attack. Oops, I missed one. But I'm just trying to show how this works, right? So see, you do like 2 Qs, and then you do 1 Q. See? 2 Qs, 1 Q. Then an auto attack, right? I'm trying to make it as simple to see as possible. And you try to do the same thing here, but it's not as important anymore. But then if you just keep clearing, you're gonna be really fine. You can also pull these camps like really far. Like really far. I'm not really pulling them that far right now. But the more damage you have, the more you can pull them as well. Like eventually you can pull the camp so hard that you can do the whole camp without ever like walking up to the camp, you know? So you just keep doing these clears, and I want to like buy damage so I can show you the other thing. So, okay, let's say we have like a lot of damage, right? Like, look. Oh, well, I'm level 3, but still. Like, see, You get to pull it really far. But let's respawn it. And let's also level up a few times so that maybe it spawns at a higher level. Where's the respawn thing? Jungle camps. Okay. So you see it's 3.2k, right? But the reality is that we can literally like pull it the whole time and just do it up to here. I think I bought too much damage though. Buy like less damage. Okay. Yeah, this should be fine enough. So you see like you can pull the camps like really, really far before they de-aggro. So blue buff, for example, is like up to here. Like the wolf camp, you can pull like pretty much like this far. You see, all the way to here. Obviously here I didn't have isolated Q, so it doesn't die, but kind of get the point. Then with red buff, you can pull it like really far as well. I think it's like here somewhere. Yeah, like here, you see. The raptors as well. So you should abuse this really hard, especially on range champs that have like a lot of damage, so you can finish the camps really easily. Like there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to finish the camps like here and like here and here and so on, right? And if you smite as well, then it's even further, obviously. Because if I'm willing to smite, then like it dies like anywhere, right? One thing to be really careful though of on Karthus is to be really careful of doing this blue buff, because Riot Games has issues in their head, and look, this thing aggroes on you, and during the early levels it's really annoying. Obviously later on it's actually a good thing for you, but during the early game it's really annoying. Then we can do an example clear as well, I guess. Where's the game reset thing? So confused, man. I haven't used this shit in a while. Thought it was here. Oh yeah, here. Why is the plus though? Okay. Let's go like this and okay. So if we just apply what we talked about just now, right? We do 2 Qs then auto attack, and then we do 1 Q and auto attack, right? And we're also going to be trying to kite camps as far as we can. This should spawn like really soon. But see, like 2 Qs, 1 auto attack, 1 out. Okay, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh no. 1, 2, 1. So yeah, we could still pull a bit further, but whatever. Then you just chill, you do these camps. Don't use your E like too much. Like when the camp is alone, you can just... The thing is, if you have blue buff, you can... The reason I use E here though is to make sure the wolf falls low enough to die. But if you have blue buff, you can usually like spam the E a lot more. So obviously if you think you're gonna get invaded or something, then maybe be a bit more sparing with it, but obviously I'm not gonna get invaded in practice full. You can also clear in a way that makes you lose less HP, but again, I'm not gonna get invaded, so I don't care. So I'm just gonna show you how you can clear without losing a lot of time. So you clear something like this, and your clears will end up being... I don't know, man. What did I clear? I mean... Wait, this is 340, so it's like 1 minute 20 right now that passed. And I think it was like 115 or 110, so... I don't know, man. Like 255 probably. 255 is normal as well, so makes sense. Something like that makes sense, I suppose. Okay, so this should give you all of the ideas. Oh yeah, also I should talk about the summoner spells. I think that Flash is just better in most cases as long as you're good on your champ. Because if you actually win early game and get a lead and stuff, having Flash is a lot more rewarding than having Exhaust. But if you're not so confident or you can't win early game or whatever without Exhaust, then obviously go for that. The thing is just that a lot of times, as I said, you can't really reach the enemy, and that's your main issue. That's why having Flash is really nice, because both if the enemies dive on you and if you need to dive on the enemies, then having Flash is going to be very beneficial because, well, you can reposition, right? Meanwhile, Exhaust is just combat, and it kind of just helps you fight when the enemy decides to fight you, right? So it's mostly like early game kinda. It also forces your Qs to hit, so it's really forceful kinda, right? Is there anything else I need to talk about? I think not. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, you can also ask that. But I think this gives you a general overview of what you want to do on Karthus jungle. So yeah, bye bye.